And we're live. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Bonjour, Lee. God Morgan, Dennis. Happy to have you here. Welcome to umbraCoffee, episode 188. We are back today with a guest I'm very excited about, Corne. Hey, Corne.
Good morning, Callum.
Hey.
I'm Marcin.
And Marcin's here. He's having his usual issues with his internet connection. I think it's all right now. I think you've recovered.
Hopefully, yeah. I should be back. Hello, everyone. Hello, Corny. Yeah, it was again a lovely and great week here, and the whole Umbraco sphere. We have a lot of things and topics to be discussed today. And just before we went, yeah, and just before we went live, I've tweeted back to Richard discussing a fight today, and we will be fighting here to prove what the Blazor is. Is it a web forms? Is it something else? We have so many questions, Corny, and I just thought that before today's umbraCoffee is like we had doubts. We all have doubts. Why not to just invite someone who played with that and just solve it hopefully for good and shorten the path to achieve the knowledge. Level of that.
It was last Friday's episode where I was saying many times before, I'm still very, very skeptical of Blazor. Don't trust it. Don't know if it's going to last that long. It feels like another Silverlight to me. But then you did do a very, very cool tweet. I think it was Friday last week, and then the blog came out earlier this week, where you showed server-side Blazor. And I know that Blazor's got many applications. I know you can do it as WebAssembly. I know that there's also you can effectively build desktop apps with it in, I think, .NET 6 that's coming up. So there's some cool stuff. I still see it as a bit of a fad. But your post was very cool and inspired me. So that's why we've got you on today. You're going to prove me wrong that Blazor is cool and it's something we should be looking at. So maybe you want to say, firstly, why Blazor? Why did you start playing around with this?
Absolutely. The main reason why I actually wanted to write about it and mess around with Blazor was a couple of reasons, actually. First off, like you said, there were a lot of people that consider it either to be a fad or they don't really know what it is, which already builds up a little light bulb above my head and like, I should mess with this, see what's possible, what can we do with it, and see where it takes me. So that's where I started off with. And especially on my blog, which I'm trying to make mostly web technology based focused, and especially Umbraco 9, my recent articles, I was like, can I find a great use case where I combine Umbraco 9 with server-side Blazor and see what the options are there and see if I can either inspire myself or the people that either write my blogs, my social media, just the community in general. So that's why I pretty much started off with. I believe it's a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, sort of like that. And I came quite far, but I ran into a couple of issues that I couldn't quite get fixed with the whole setup. Luckily for me, a script article posted by Jeroen and Leonard came out, I believe it was a week or two ago, which pretty much solved the exact same issues that I was running into, mostly have to do with routing and such. So using them as a baseline, I went to work and see what can we do with the options that Umbraco has to offer. So what I did is I tried to find a way to hook into an event sent by Umbraco, in this case a publish event sent off by the back office, and see can I make a way to update my front end live whenever I publish something. And to my surprise, it works surprisingly well. So that's what I did in this case. In this blog, I'm describing how you can set up your services and notifications so you can have an automatically updating front end. I believe I have a fancy GIF on the bottom of my blog post that actually shows whenever I publish an article, it will live update my front end. And of course, this is very trivial, nothing too exciting about this yet, but I was definitely hoping to inspire some people with the idea that it isn't just a front end that sends events to the back end, does some math, some calculations, whatever, and then returns an updated view. That you also have the option to do actions from the back end and trigger updates on your front end like that.
Okay, so that's awesome. And the fact that this blog post is pretty light on code, shall we say, is even more impressive. So if I'm understanding here, you're effectively on the back end, you've got a Blazor component that you're hooking into those events that Umbraco is surfacing, and then
exactly, yeah.
it re-renders that component every time. It's like a reactive component, effectively. So whenever you it will re-render the component, or it's actually performing some logic.
Pretty much like that, yeah. When the notification from the Umbraco backend gets sent, I update a list. In this case, very trivial, in the service that I'm running, to just put down the date that I'm currently publishing on and the model type alias of the content type. At the same time, I'm using the notification pattern to register my client to that very same service, and say whenever a change happens on that same list in that service, trigger the property has changed function, and by that also update the state has changed function on my view, so that the front end actually updates with the content that it renders.
So if I've understood this correctly, then Blazor's got this notifications concept. It's got a notification queue, a bus somewhere there where you can broadcast events and subscribe to them client side.
Not by definition Blazor. I believe it's more of a .NET Core specific, the .NET Core in general thing, being able to register notifications and handling them.
But I mean, how you're subscribing to those notifications, that's done on the client side, or that's actually done on the back end?
It is done on the backend for the service itself. So the service is registering to the notification. And when that event gets called, I'm also registering. I'm also calling a property has changed event on my on my view. So they're pretty much both linked in that way.
Yeah, that's what I also noticed here, that the event is just triggered, and mostly the pattern is like implementation chosen way of you doing this implementation, but the Blazor is just doing the refreshes on this invokes of the changes received from the event trigger. It looks really cool, and again, you just used some simple use case, but I see a lot of potential use cases. All of that, like all of the signal R driven approaches, things like that, all the communications hidden somewhere and not requiring any refreshes. Really, trading applications or things like that, which are requiring some kind of actions like that.
Done previously, right? You'd have to have set up Signal R and had a kind of a service there that you would broadcast your events to in the front and could listen on that. But this seems like it's probably doing similar, but it's wiring it all up for you at least.
Exactly.
Or do it via APIs, right? Or do it via APIs and rely on some front-end engine or framework, right? Which was usually doing some kind of data refreshes or pools of data, right? Combination of both. So it's not web forms. It's not web forms only. Damn, it has more powers. Where is on click? Where is on click? Where?
It does feel quite like Vue or React or anything where you can create a reactive front-end component, but then you have to do all of the back-end plumbing. So you have to have as we said, Signal R or some kind of service that you can poll or listen to and have WebSockets open with to actually trigger those refreshes. But this kind of gets it all set up for you. So it's like as if Vue would speak the same language as the back-end, and then they can talk.
Exactly, but then completely without JavaScript this time.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes all of us backenders smile here, and we can probably use it in all the fights with front enders on our ends. But
it makes me nervous. Still makes me nervous. The idea that potentially you could have Blazor components within an application itself that can then react to each other is quite cool. So like in the Umbraco, let's say hypothetically the Umbraco back office was built in Blazor, you could have the tree refresh when a save happens, and the tree component would just listen for those. That does make sense. I do get it. I do get it. I don't know about putting it in front, like on a client on the front end in front of a like publicly accessible thing. And I know before we went live, we asked you, "Are you using Blazor in production?" And you said,
no. Not yet,
which is fine. It's pretty new, but I've had that same answer from everyone I've asked. So
I think it also really depends on what you're trying to build with the front end, because there's, especially with such a broad CMS system as Umbraco, would I recommend this for a general purpose client side? Probably not. But I can think of quite a lot of use cases that would benefit from having a live updating view that also implements a back office, whether it's some sort of statistics platform, perhaps, that automatically updates whenever something changes, or just a general hidden page for the back office, the people that would normally access the back office, but want something that automatically updates. That you can't normally do in the Umbraco back office or by extending it itself.
Yeah, and Courtney, you've mentioned some of the issues which you've faced on the go. Are there still occurs for you, or it's solved after you've set it up, or it's still something unknown or challenging on the way?
The main challenge that I first ran into was when I tried to create some sort of Frankenstein monster by creating a fresh solution of a server-side Blazor installation and see what do I need to copy-paste to actually get this to work within an Umbraco 9 instance. And the only thing that makes it quite delicate is that you need to, it is quite important that you register your endpoints and such in the appropriate order in your startup classes. Otherwise, either you don't have the endpoints available, or you will automatically overwrite the Umbraco endpoint, for example, so you can no longer access the back office itself. That was one of the first things. But also the way that you are actually routing your components, because with most of the examples that you can find about server-side Blazor, it doesn't really involve using standard templates or CSHTML files. But just straight up Razor files with their specified page URLs, and the application itself does all the routing. But we don't want to do that. We want Umbraco to do the routing for us, and then in our template say we want to render this specific component. So that was one of the major issues that I ran into at first.
That's something that I've had when doing Vue or React as well, because most of those, when you build an application like that, they're kind of expecting it to be an entirely React-driven application or entirely Vue-driven application, and you're creating components that are effectively, they should kind of always live within a Vue context. But in the case when we're doing Umbraco and in content-driven sites, we often embed our components inside existing templates that are rooted to or whatever. So I guess, yeah, same principles as any JavaScript framework nowadays.
Exactly. And because of this, it's no longer you can install server-side Blazor in your Umbraco 9 application and not even have the front-end user know, except for maybe one very specific page that uses one specific component that would benefit from the entire Blazor setup. So it's very dynamic this way.
That clears some of my concerns, to be honest, and I think we heavily rely on big front-ends or micro front-ends applications right now in various frameworks, and it's nothing different in this way, because still the major work, hopefully, if we architect it correctly, happens behind the scenes on the server, and we shouldn't expose it explicitly for the client usage, and Blazor just routes it and handles it somehow. I didn't get into the architecture of it. Did you, Connie? Did you check how it's communicating with the server?
Not too in depth, I must say. The most thing that I got into was the comparison between Blazor server-side rendering and the Blazor WebAssembly versions, and see what are the pros and cons of each version and see how that works. I came to the realization that for this use case, I would say server-side Blazor would work best. I don't even think you were able to run some sort of Frankenstein monster with WebAssembly and Umbraco. I'm not even sure how that would communicate or even work at all. But also to try to keep it as lightweight as possible, because that's also the downside of the WebAssembly version, is that you theoretically just ship your entire compiled DLL to the front-end user and just have it run in their client, which
megabytes and megabytes of DLLs. But then we do that with JavaScript as well, don't we?
We do to a certain point, but I do believe that there are some ways to actually trim your compiled source codes and whatever to make it less intrusive for the end user. But it's still the one major con for the WebAssembly version, is that it requires you to have the entire compiled DLLs. Not to mention that it requires your browser to actually support WebAssembly. Which most modern browsers do, but we do have to keep backwards compatibility in mind sometimes.
Worth to mention, of course, is that you've shared your code and your experiment as an addition to your blog post, and it's all on GitHub, so everyone can grab it, fork it, play with it, and see how it works. You've mentioned all of the startups classes and order of components to be registered and stuff like that, so it's all here. So I think all of us and all of the people you here who wants to experiment with Umbraco and Blazor can just check it out, and it's just yet another example of it being tested and confirmed that it works. And right now we can all await probably just more use cases where it can satisfy some project requirements, or maybe to cover some of the Umbraco or CMS actions to be distributed across the front ends or applications, like sending webhooks or doing some other crazy stuff like that. So yeah, great stuff, and yeah, it looks awesome. And thanks for exploring this path for us and sharing your journey with this kind of exploration.
And thank you for allowing me to talk about it.
We mentioned Cornet's blog, but I'm a big fan of your blog, and we were talking just before we went live that you've only had it running since January this year. I think your first post was a kind of a commitment to blogging. It was, I'm going to do this. You've done 9 posts or something since January, and they're all really good, really nice technical blog posts on everything from like Azure Devops to running Umbraco 9 in Docker and beyond, and they're incredibly incredibly good. So go check out Cornet's blog. It's fantastic. Technical writing is difficult, and doing one a month is pretty impressive.
Thank you very much.
And of course, as usual, we will link it all in the description of this video after we'll finish our live stream. So yeah, go check it out. Umbraco and Docker blog posts as well, DevOps explorations and some more. So you document and you explore a lot of interesting and hot tracks and topics. So yeah, we can probably all learn and shorten the path to learn this stuff thanks to our knowledge being shared across.
I definitely
so yeah, GitHub
and I will
blog post. I was probably once again delayed. Yeah, my great internet connection is helping again. But yeah, we can jump on some Umbraco releases now, because of course during this week we also had some of the information being shared from HQ, starting from RC 8.16 release candidate this week. I didn't have time yet and an opportunity to test it, but it has a lot of small improvements and no breaking changes, what makes us happier and probably should make it easier for all of us to test it. Some dependencies updates, some really cool improvements for the usability and the design somewhere in the background, and Serilog dependencies were upgraded as well.
That's great, because that's been annoying me every time I go and do an Umbraco upgrade.
Yeah,
they sit there like I can get every other dependency upgraded to almost the latest, except Serilog, npoco, and a couple other things as well.
Yeah, custom dashboards for user dialog were also rolled out this release, and yeah, dependencies update. So yeah, everyone can test. Release candidate period is on now. Hopefully, it will go smooth through the testing period, and we should expect it released on August 26th according to the release plan. So
2 weeks yesterday.
2 weeks from now.
But then there's this interesting point right at the end about 8.17, which, I mean, it feels crazy that we've got to an 8.17 release. I don't think we've gone that high on version numbers in a long time. But
yep.
This is going to contain the tabs updates, isn't it? So 8.16 was supposed to. They pulled it out last minute and said we're gonna push it, but it will be coming pretty soon as well. There's no commitment on that, but I think we'll be getting an 8.17 release candidate earlier than expected. So maybe within the next couple of weeks as well, which would be really awesome. And I think that's one that a lot of people are going to be looking forward to. So keep your eyes out for that.
Yep. Cool. And package-wise, Kevin Jump shared the new version of Translation Manager. And it's version 9 beta, and yeah, right now it's working for both Umbraco 9 and Umbraco 8. So
I've got a question on this. What's our thoughts on this? So I know that when Umbraco 8 came out, a lot of people started versioning their packages as V8 dot something. So I know usync went from like V4 to V8, and Translation Manager maybe went from V1 or 2 to V8. And that's cool. So if you tie your package versions to your CMS version, kind of makes sense. But now you've got multi-targeted packages. So you've got a package that can work on both V8 and V9, but you have to have it as a major version. So the V9 version works on V8, and suddenly that cycle's broken. I don't know how I feel about it. It's quite funny. And then it will be confusing later when at some point you can no longer multi-target reliably. And you're going to have to separate them.
You've opened the Pandora box of release numbers. And Courtney, I know maybe you as a guest have any fresh input on that, any patterns from your side, how you deal with the breaking changes and releases numbers and stuff like that on your end?
Oh man, that's a tough one, especially when talking about multi-targeting packages, because I've been mostly following the package developers in the community that are working with this. Like Callum said, I think it's quite an interesting topic to get into, because on the one hand, I think it would be quite a useful case to just have one package number like V8 or V9 that's compatible for both versions. But on the other hand, it doesn't quite make it clear which version supports which Umbraco. So if you're publishing a V9 version, I wouldn't automatically assume I'm able to also install it on Umbraco 8, for example. But if you're just naming it version 2.3 or whatever, and in the changelogs or in the description it says compatible with both versions, you're not causing any confusion beforehand, unless you're actually naming it already V8 or V9 by definition.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one, and I think I'm quite happy that I didn't do that for any of my packages. We've kind of kept them to semantic versioning. So Vendor's done the same, haven't they? Where V2 of Vendor works on both V8 and 9, and that's okay. But you've kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit if you've gone down the route of saying, okay, it's now I'm using usync as an example. Sorry, Kevin, not picking on you, but usync 8, then usync 9, but you can't switch back, because if at some point later you want to say, okay, we're going to go V1, and then you hit 8, you've already had a V8. You can't launch that. There was this discussion as well about Umbraco versioning, wasn't there, a long time ago? If we're moving to semantic versioning, do we start from V1, or do we just continue from where we are, V9, and then it goes with semantic versions? And eventually you're going to hit the okay, we've got two versions of V8.
Yeah, I was going to say that, because there were some topics and discussions of changing Umbraco versioning to 1, for example, right? And it will blow up every idea. And I believe it's all the matter of maintenance and time efforts required to maintain the packages, because whatever is easier, whatever has less time consumption, in my opinion. And it was obviously clearer to have package for V8, V7, V9, and so on. But for me, using is using. If all of the packages will maintain the dependencies correctly, and they won't allow to install the packages if it will be all of them will be shipped through NuGet, right? And they will check, okay, you require Umbraco version 8 for this version of the package, we should be all right? But because of the fact that we could install packages from back office, from NuGet, from custom installations, it wasn't that easy to validate that. So that's the whole source of the problem or challenge in this case. But yeah, whatever works at the end. But I'm happy to read the release notes and ensure it multiple times which version of the package is dedicated for which version of Umbraco, because it can blow up, right?
And occasionally we don't have it, thankfully, on V8 at the minute, because the framework version is tied to a certain framework version. But yeah, you can try and upgrade to a package, and it's like, I'm going to upgrade to V8 now on V7, for example, and you're like, oh, why has that happened? And now stuff doesn't work. So
amazing is when some let's say when some .NET developers are joining Umbraco projects, and they by default just want to upgrade everything in the NuGet just in case. I want to have everything update all dependencies, all the projects, force, and 1 week off from now. So yeah, that's life. it's interesting topic. Let's aim to get it addressed in more depth. So maybe at some point. Next package, which released another beta version, is Examinex from Shannon. And it has a beta 29 version on Nougat, and from what I saw on release notes probably or somewhere out there, Shannon asked for really testing this version because it has some really cool updates and changes there. So if anyone uses Examinex and wants to test and has benefits from the latest release, just test it out and share your feedback with Shannon and the package team. And last but not least from the package cycle is an update from about Newsletter Studio. A couple of weeks ago, we've had a nice demo here from Marcus on umbraCoffee, and Marcus decided to record a video, walk through the version of the Newsletter Studio. So another option to get familiar with what it can offer, and another link to share, for example, with potential product owners or people who might want to see what it can do in their packages, in their projects. Really cool stuff from Marcus here. And that's from the package area, and we've mentioned GitHub, and we had also a really nice update from GitHub this week, which is a code spaces availability, general availability right now, right, Callum? And second is this magical dot feature in every repository.
So people have probably heard of code spaces. This has been knocking around for a good year or so now. It's effectively a dev machine in the cloud, VS Code running in the cloud, backed by a container. So you can develop with I think .NET Core because they're all Linux containers. So anything that will run on Linux and develop on Linux, you can run on a code space. And we did an umbraCoffee episode where I quickly showed getting Hacker9 up and running. So code spaces is in general availability with a caveat. It's only for teams and enterprise customers. So if you're an individual, you can't just spin up a code space right now. It might come in the future.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just for teams and individuals, and I think it starts at about 18 cents an hour for the machine, and you can scale them way up to really powerful ones that can scale with your needs. So that's cool.
32 cores and 64 gigabytes of memory. It's
there was a
couple times more than my laptop now.
Yeah, and of course you're not paying for running the operating system. You're not paying for running the host. You're just paying for so you're getting actually that much power for you to run your dev machine, which is kind of cool. You don't have to worry about Slack sucking up all of the RAM away from your dev environment. But then there's a blog post this week that came alongside this where GitHub announced they've been developing GitHub in code spaces for the past few weeks and months. So effectively, GitHub don't have like dev machines anymore. They just do everything in the cloud. And then to kind of, I don't know if it's to compensate, but as in addition to code spaces, they've announced this week this web editor experience. So you can go to any repo and press dot, and it will take you into the web editor, which is the same thing as a code space, but it's not backed by a container. So it's completely free, and it's just a way for you to use VS Code in the browser for a given repo. And I think this is a great way to contribute to open source. Like if you want to do some updates to documentation and you want proper markdown editing and previewing and stuff in VS Code, want to edit multiple files at the same time, you can do that. You open the repo up, and you can even search the repo and choose which branch. So anyone that's been plagued by the really annoying GitHub search that only searches the default branch, well, no longer. Spin it up in a code space or in the web editor, and you can search there. So go to any GitHub repo, any public repo, press dot, and you can open the editor. Or go to the URL and change github.com to github.dev on any repo, and again, launches you straight into this. So that's pretty cool. It's good for the community.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think it got easier right now to convince people to change something within the repositories. We had a lot of situations where, for example, PMs or less technical people wanted to change something in the documentation. We have some of our documentation shared as markdown files on our repository somewhere. And right now, telling them that, open pull request, get Git client, edit it or change it somewhere sounds like an impossible mission for Tom Cruise. And here, it's like go and click dot in this URL URL and change whatever you want to and click save. That's all. I don't know how it works on pull request, because I've heard that it can be also open for the pull request directly. So it opens and make it easier to contribute. Definitely, and of course, right now it's pinned up in couple seconds, less than a minute for sure. But also when I tested for the first time, it was even faster. Right now, probably I'm streaming. There is a lot of internet consumption here, so that's the case. But yeah, of course, it's faster. It's in browser. Doesn't require any of the computation and machines, and yeah, it's just amazing. Something really cool and new here.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. And like I say, and we've said, for certain simple cases, I just want to make a contribution to a project. It works, and people will say, "Oh, I can't contribute to complex projects where it needs to build or something like that." Where with the code space, you can do that because it's got an environment there. But actually, you can make the pull request. Most of the open source repos now have GitHub Actions that will automatically build that for you. Yeah. And so, as long as you're making a small code change, you'll be able to confirm that the tests are running and it's all building and all good just by committing and creating a pull request all via your browser. I saw someone this week showed they were using their iPad to do the same thing. Like you can contribute to GitHub repos on an iPad now, which is incredible. And anyone that does have access to Codespaces, the beta, you probably still do have access to it, and you can keep using that for free for now. But the Umbraco 9 repo is also set up to work with Codespaces, so you can do full Umbraco 9 contributions directly in GitHub, which is really cool.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Amazing times. Development from tablets. And me not opening Visual Studio for a couple months again. Sounds good.
My really expensive MacBook is just going to be put in the bin at some point. Like, just use everything on my phone from now.
Yeah. Cool, exciting times, and so there are some new opportunities to share exciting learnings and knowledge as well. We can jump to the meetup announcement now. Callum, Joe from your team announced this week that there is a new meetup on the map for Portsmouth, Southampton. I won't be trying to pronounce these names correctly. It's tough.
Cool. Yeah, they want to do him and Jason would like to do a South Coast Umbraco meetup. There's a bunch of Umbracians on the South Coast, but places in the UK, they're a bit spread out, and so they're kind of smaller, and they don't necessarily have so many people in one place where you could justify it. I know there used to be a Bournemouth meetup, and they had a couple of good events, but I think the idea is to move it around a bit, so you could have one in Bournemouth one time, one in Southampton the next, and try and get the local community together. And I think they're also going to do it hybrid, is what they've said. So if people can't join in person or don't want to, then you could also join remotely, which is nice. So yeah, best of luck to them. Should be cool.
And there's additional information that it's not only about Umbraco, but it will also tackle the topics like DevOps, CMSs, front end, and database, and so on. So maybe we'll have a spread across the development and developers there, and some new Umbraco community members with some new exciting knowledge there. And Corny, where are you based exactly in your location?
I'm in the Netherlands.
Yep. So, what is the closest meetup group for you then? Do you have any at the moment?
There's the Dutch Umbraco.
Dutch Umbraco
group. Yeah. So that's the closest for me.
And it's also running through a couple of cities, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Especially since the Netherlands is so small. Either way, even if it's on the other end of the country, any other meetup, it's still less than an hour away. So, very manageable.
No. Pretty far. We are all looking forward for more meetups and in-person meetups to get back to the routine of visiting events like that. And last list of our things to be shared this week is list of blogs and some podcast updates. So we can start from Package Manifest episode about documentation. And I completely missed that. I must admit, but I need to catch up on this. It's such an important topic, to be honest. And yeah, it's glad to see how guys shared their experiences from all of the documentation tools they've used. And we admired a lot of the documentation done by these two and generally the package teams and developers here in Umbraco community. So it's great to see that they are sharing how they've done it. And guys, did you have a chance to catch up on this, to listen to this episode?
I have actually. I've listened to it yesterday, and like you said, it was another amazing episode, just like the entire series is. But it really goes into a lot of interesting topics on how to make documenting easier and what are the struggles that you run into, especially on bigger projects. So definitely worth to read, worth to listen, I should say. So yeah, do so.
Documentation is something I struggle with so hard on packages. Like you get the package done, you're like, it works, it's great, I want to release it. Documentation, and then you pull something together, but then you've got to keep it up to date too as things change, as people maybe make pull requests that might adjust or enhance that behavior. They don't always then think to update the docs as well. And so it's a big job maintaining documentation, and I wouldn't even want to consider maintaining docs for something like Vendor, which is a huge product with loads and loads of features.
Exactly. And the downside is, and that's something that they also go into the podcast, so I don't want to spoil too much. But knowing that you have to update your docs when you want to work on a new feature can also kill your enthusiasm. For actually wanting to try something out or develop new features, because well, if I write this, I'll have to make new documentation again. So that's quite an interesting topic to get into.
Yeah, but the problem is that whenever you are sharing something what anyone or someone else can use, it would be good to help them using it. and the challenge is that in most cases only you or the development team knows how to use it and what is hidden, what is there, and we tend to blame documentation part and say that code might be self-explanatory, but you need to scan through the code and do the code review to find out the documentation parts, and it's not efficient for sure. So I'm happy to catch up on this, and I saw some linters mentioned there, really cool stuff. So thanks guys for sharing this episode with all of us. And round of blogs starting from running Umbraco 9 on Raspberry Pi. So yeah, maybe Raspberry Pi can be used to develop code using code spaces as well, and then you can run on Umbraco 9 on it. Even if, from what I saw on Sebastian's post originally, it was told and said that it's impossible, and it turned out it's possible now.
Of course, Carl Saguna did a talk at Code Garden showing that you could get it up and running on a Raspberry Pi, but with the caveat that the database was still living externally, so it was still using like an Azure SQL database. And what Seb has managed to do here is use Azure SQL Edge, which is cool. So you can actually run pretty much everything natively on the device. So he's been asking a few people on Twitter how to make his Pi publicly accessible or something as well. So you could in theory run like a lightweight server off a Raspberry Pi and there host it from your house or something. But that's pretty cool. It looks good.
Is SQL Edge a new SQL CE or something like that?
I honestly don't know. I'm not completely familiar with it.
Interesting. So yeah, again, something new to catch up and explore, but a lot of potential and possibilities if it can run standalone without being depending on SQL Server somewhere else.
And you asked about could you run your development environment on here? Technically, you can. So if you were to set up a Docker container, which is what Sebastian's done here to host his host everything. If you set up a Docker container with the VS Code extension, I can't remember, code remote something. I'll very quickly find the name. It's remote containers. So you can install an extension VS Code. You can point a path at it, a URL, and it will connect to that container. So in the same way as VS Code can connect to your GitHub code space remotely, you can connect to a container hosted on any network, anywhere, in fact, and use that as your development environment. So technically, you could use your Raspberry Pi as a development environment and connect to it from a low-powered PC running VS Code.
Very cool.
Nice.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, nice. Next on our list is one more knowledge bit from MadBrace for this week, and it was findings and documentation on how to automate Umbraco package builds and deployment with Nuke build, Git version, and Azure DevOps. So interesting challenge, versioning again.
About Nuke build before being an alternative to MS build. And he's spoken about it on Package Manifest as well, of rather than having all of your configuration for your builds as MS Build commands, like I don't even know what it's called, but the XML based stuff. Instead, you can define all of your build pipeline as code in C#. So that means you can also access other libraries. If you wanted to do versioning, for example, you could pull in a dependency that does versioning. That's pretty cool. But I've never even considered replacing MS Build as my build tool with something new, but Matt's done it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, we are using GitHub Actions and some combination of MS Build and Actions there to build it. But it looks, for the backend developer, it looks cleaner right now. If you see the code and information here, definitely better than XML. And if it works, if it has some kind of really cool stuff. I wasn't aware of that. So great blog post, and same. I saw. Yep.
I believe as well. If you go on if you look on NuGet, Matt, and I may be out of turn for calling this out, but Matt has built a umbrac nuke build runner. So umbrac being the CLI tool you can use to build the Umbraco package format, and Matt has published a nuke wrapper for that, so you can call those in as part of your pipeline, which is really cool, because then you could effectively generate I guess we can call it legacy now, the legacy Umbraco package format, as well as part of your build process. Spit out the NuGet package and this legacy format. Nice,
cool.
Yeah,
very nice.
I've also saw a lot of tweets and people being new to Git version. So it's also amazing to see that this was bundled and used there for better and easier semantic versioning here. So check it out for sure if you haven't used any of these tools. And thanks, Matt, for sharing it with all of us. Another blog is from Aaron, and it's again related from Umbraco 9, and the title of it is How to Create a Custom Index. So the whole setup of custom examine index for Umbraco v9 with the test from Umbraco backoffice seems like it's not that hard.
Way easier than it is in v7 or v8.
No configuration files again, right? So
but even less configuration. Before you had to create lots of classes to even make it possible, but it seems like it's all hidden away
Indexer searcher
under some nice builder extension now. It's awesome.
Easier and clearer code. Yeah, thanks Aaron for sharing. And last but not least, two more blogs here. One of them is from Nathan, more related to Azure Devops, again versioning topic. So there might be a bundle of versioning related blogs this week from Nathan and Matt to check it out how it's done here with MS Build and GitHub, not GitHub Actions, Azure Devops to do some automated bumps and upgrades of the versions. So the one from Nathan, and Dennis sharing his blog about mocking property values in Umbraco. So another from the series of unit testing helpers and additions for dealing and testing Umbraco. So Dennis, thanks for this one. And if anyone wants to share their knowledge and don't have blog, for example, or wants to write something for maybe different audience or maybe wider audience, Script Magazine is looking for some new authors for September and October issues. So there is another motivation to maybe deal or try something new. If someone is looking for additional and external motivation, this is it. So reach to the Script Magazine team, ask for opportunity, see what you can offer and what you can share. And I think, and we will always be saying that everyone have something to share because there is always something what someone else doesn't know. So feel free to submit your ideas.
Recommend others as well. Like encourage other people, because they've said many times new faces are great, great to have, and they've done a pretty good job in the past few issues of having some different people, which is awesome. But it would be great to see even more new different people. Maybe you've been inspired by go have a look at Corney's blog. Honestly, some fantastic things on there that maybe like topics you could think, oh yeah, we're doing something similar. I'll share my story or something. Script is
absolutely
a great way to do that.
Yep. And two updates from Umbraco at the end of the episode. for August is Bianca, and a highlight of Umbraco profile, information about the involvement to the community. And Bianca is from Markets Partner from Norway, working with Lars, Eric, and a couple other friends there. So you can find out more how Bianca started her journey with Umbraco, with development, and what is consuming her time after work and not only after the work. And last blog is new hire, standard segment of umbraCoffee. This time is Nikolai, and Nikolai joined which team? It was D team, directly. So new extension, and also there was some tweet about interns starting probably this month.
I think we covered that a few weeks back, where they had an announcement. I think 10 interns or something joined, and they confirmed we'd be getting blog posts for each of them. I guess this is the first in that list, which is cool.
Okay. So Nikolai is as a new standard D team intern in the D team member. Check out more about Nikolai and new team members every week on Umbraco HQ blog. And that's the full list of our news for this week. Hopefully we didn't miss anything. Callum, as you've said, something is starting, summer is ending, something is starting, and we can see a lot more of that. Corny, what are your plans now? What is on your roadmap to explore next within Umbraco ecosystem?
To be honest, I'm not really sure as of right now, so I am totally open for any inspiration. I'm hoping to be able to inspire some people with the topics that we've discussed today. And of course, I'm keeping track of all my socials, so if I see someone struggling with something or just a random idea pop up, I'll see what I can do and hook into that idea and to try to take it to the next level. So currently nothing planned, but knowing me and my history so far, it probably won't take too long before I can come up with something else extreme.
I mean, Umbraco 9 is, at least according to the roadmap, scheduled for August or August-ish, which is 2 weeks left. So we're probably a matter of weeks away from actually having V9 stable and in everyone's hands. And I think that's going to spur a bunch of excitement in the community as well. People doing new exciting things, trying out Blazor, but also getting their hands on new C# features that we've not had the pleasure of having access to in Umbraco projects before. And doing some cool stuff there. So, it's going to be an exciting few weeks, I think. But there won't be a lack of inspiration for sure.
Absolutely.
So let's enjoy the end of the summer, the last bits of it, at least in the calendars, because we can live summer all year, let's bring some summer vibes into Umbraco development. And obviously, if you will do something cool, share with us, share it with Umbraco community, let us find it, let us highlight it in umbraCoffee episodes, and if you will find it useful for you, your friends, your colleagues, your family, share it, like it, subscribe to it, and let everyone know that we are doing it every Friday, and we'll do more of it. So do the YouTuber stuff.
We've actually got some, for once, really exciting episodes coming up planned. So
yes,
subscribe so you don't miss.
Don't miss. Subscribe as well.
Yeah.
And thanks, Corny, for joining us. Keep up the good work, and share everything with us in the community, and I'm sure we will see you and your activity here in the future. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the great audience. Thank you for the great show. And I hope to be here someday in the future again.
Oh, we'll have you back.
Thank you very much. Sounds great.
Cheers, everyone. Have a nice weekend, and see you next Friday. Bye-bye.